You're watching Free Speech TV.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now! It's tax day. To mark the occasion, a former banker who blew the whistle on the biggest tax evasion scheme in U.S. history and wound up in jail himself is asking President Obama for clemency. We'll speak with his attorney. And we'll talk to the mayor of Binghamton, New York. He's marking tax day by putting up a cost of war counter on the front of City Hall to show how much residents in the city have spent on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Then we go to Des Moines, Iowa, where a mother was initially charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor after her 12-year-old daughter, Frankie, protested inside Senator Harkin's office, protesting war funding. But first, we talk to leading environmentalist Bill McKibben. His new book is Earth, Making Life on a Tough Planet. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Obama administration's intensifying efforts to pass a financial regulation overhaul on Capitol Hill. On Wednesday, Obama met with congressional leaders at the White House for talks on the pending Senate bill. After the meeting, Obama said the measure would include new regulations on derivatives trading and rejected Republican claims that his proposals would open the door to future bailouts.
We want to get that into daylight so that regulators and ordinary Americans know what's going on when it comes to this huge segment of the financial system. I am absolutely confident that the bill that emerges is going to be a bill that prevents bailouts. That's the goal.
Among the proposals under fire from Republicans is a measure from Democratic Senator Blanche Lincoln of Arkansas. Lincoln has backed rules that would force large banks to stop most forms of derivatives trading. New figures show U.S. foreclosures are at a record high. According to Realty Track, foreclosure filings topped 367,000 last month, the highest monthly total since Realty Track began issuing reports in January 2005. Nearly 260,000 homes and other properties were repossessed in the first quarter of the fiscal year. That's an all-time record and a 35% jump from the previous year. The figures come as a government watchdog says the Obama administration's foreclosure prevention program is failing to help millions of people in danger of losing their homes. The Congressional Oversight Panel says the Making Home Affordable program, HAMP, has helped just one borrower for every 10 who have lost their homes. Panel Chair Elizabeth Warren said, quote, the Treasury Department's response is lagging behind the pace of the crisis. It also seems clear that its programs will not reach the overwhelming majority of homeowners in trouble. The financial giant JPMorgan Chase has posted a $3.3 billion first-quarter profit, a 57% increase from last year. The firm has received over $25 billion under the taxpayer-funded bailout. In related news, students from this year's graduating class at Syracuse University have launched a campaign to cancel a commencement address from JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. The students say they oppose Dimon's appearance because of his company's role in the nation's financial meltdown. An online student petition has gathered 900 signatures so far. New figures show the gap between U.S. contractors and soldiers in Afghanistan continues to widen. According to the Congressional Research Service, there were over 107,000 U.S.-hired contractors in Afghanistan as of February, compared to 78,000 U.S. soldiers. Contractor deaths are also on the rise. Of the 289 civilians that have died under U.S. employ in Afghanistan since the war began, 100 have died in the last 6 months. A bipartisan group of lawmakers has introduced a measure calling for a timetable for the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. On Wednesday, Democratic Senator Russ Feingold of Wisconsin joined Democratic Congressmember Jim McGowan of Massachusetts and Republican Congressmember Walter Jones of North Carolina in calling for a flexible timetable for a U.S. withdrawal. The measure also calls for increasing oversight of taxpayer-funded contractors in Afghanistan. At the United Nations, talks have resumed between the 5 permanent Security Council members on a new round of sanctions against Iran. A closed-door session was held Wednesday between diplomats from the U.S., Russia, China, Britain, and France, as well as Germany. The talks came as top military officials appeared before the Senate Armed Services Committee for a hearing on Iran's nuclear activities. The officials said the Pentagon believes Iran could produce weapons-grade enriched uranium within a year, but would need another 3 to 5 years to produce a deliverable weapon. In his opening remarks, Republican Senator John McCain said the U.S. should pull the trigger on sanctioning Iran.
The list goes on and on of the threats that we have made to the Iranians, and so far, no action. George Shultz, my favorite Secretary of State in all the world, once said his Marine drill instructor told him, never point a gun at somebody unless you're ready to pull a trigger. We keep pointing the gun. We haven't pulled a single trigger yet, and it's about time that we did.
Amidst the scrutiny on Iran, the Israeli government has reiterated its refusal to join the Non-Proliferation Treaty. On Wednesday, Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak responded to President Obama's call for all countries to ratify the NPT.
To our friends and our allies, we say, there is no room to pressure Israel into signing the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel has never threatened to destroy other countries or nations, whereas Iran today, and in the past also Syria, Libya, and Iraq, that have signed the treaty, have broken it systematically with explicit threats on Israel's existence.
Meanwhile, in the occupied territories, a mosque near the West Bank town of Nablus has been vandalized by a group of Israeli settlers. The unidentified settlers scrawled graffiti on the mosque and set fire to 2 nearby cars. Defense Secretary Robert Gates has begun a South American trip to regional U.S. military allies. Gates met with top officials in Peru Wednesday before traveling to Colombia. Gates' trip comes on the heels of a new military cooperation deal between the U.S. and Brazil signed earlier this week. Speaking in Peru, Gates denied U.S. military agreements pose a threat to the region.
The purpose of my trip here to South America is a positive purpose, and it is to strengthen our friendship and our military-to-military cooperation with Peru and Colombia. These arrangements between ourselves and Brazil, ourselves and Peru, ourselves and Colombia are about these countries, not about anybody else.
A Brazilian federal court has delayed bidding on a major hydroelectric dam in the Amazon rainforest. The $11 billion Belo Monte project was approved for construction earlier this year. If completed, it'll be the world's 3rd largest hydroelectric dam. Bidding was initially set to begin next week, but on Wednesday, a federal judge in Brazil's Pará state put the bidding on hold, saying more time is needed to address environmental concerns surrounding the project. Opponents say the dam will devastate tens of thousands of indigenous Amazonian residents and threaten wildlife. Dozens of Colombians have filed a class-action lawsuit against fruit giant Chiquita Brands International for its role in financing a right-wing paramilitary group in the 1990s. Chiquita has admitted to paying millions of dollars to the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia, known as the AUC. Some of the plaintiffs allege they were injured or had family members killed as a result of Chiquita's support for the group. In West Virginia, Governor Joe Manchin's calling on mines across the state to suspend production on Friday to honor the 29 victims of last week's mine disaster at the Upper Big Branch mine. Manchin has also ordered state inspectors to probe mines cited for repeated combustion risks within the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the Mining Safety and Health Administration has revealed the Upper Big Branch mine was on a list of 48 mines deemed to have enough violations to warrant at least a temporary closure earlier this year. But regulators couldn't take action because a heavy backlog of appeals made it impossible to establish the necessary finding that the mines had a pattern of violations. Attorney General Eric Holder says the Obama administration may still decide to try suspects in the 9/11 attacks in a New York federal court. The White House backed off the proposal earlier this year after New York lawmakers voiced heavy opposition. But appearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee Wednesday, Holder said it'll take weeks for the White House to conclude a review of the proposed trials and that New York has not been ruled out as a potential site. In labor news, Service Employees International Union President Andy Stern has confirmed reports he's stepping down. Stern made the announcement in a videotape message to SEIU members.